Actor Michael Rosenbaum. He knows some of the most talented people in the business.
Let's get inside of Jack Osbourne.
Bands would say Black Sabbath was a huge influence.
And thank God you liked it, boy.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood.
Peter gets on the phone. Elijah, would you like to play the role of Frodo?
Did you cry?
Probably screamed at the top of my lungs.
You play iconic characters, Black Canary and Black Siren. Who would you choose?
Probably Black Siren. She's like, I got this. And that's how Katie Cassidy feels. She's got this.
I like that.
The Inside of You podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here ahead of the 3-day holiday weekend. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz at 5 with Randy Wang. Mottek On Money. We are live on the air right here in 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. Yes, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Rough week for stocks, record-shattering week for Bitcoin. Stocks did pull back today. So did Bitcoin, by the way. For stocks registering weekly losses as investors assess the president's latest tariff threats and the potential impact of the tax bill on the deficit and the economy. That big, beautiful bill was passed earlier this week. All three of the major averages were down more than 2% for the week, with the Dow today coming in for a closing loss of 256 points, the S&P 500 down 39, and the NASDAQ down 189 points. We did see Bitcoin pull back a bit. Right now, it's just below 108,000 after hitting record highs above 111,000 earlier in the week. President Trump implying the tariffs would apply to other cell phone manufacturers today. The comments he made today that Apple must pay a 25% tariff on iPhones sold but not made in the U.S. Apple has begun shifting some manufacturing to India, with China home to its key suppliers locked in a trade war with the U.S. as well. Apple stock among the casualties of the day. The president also threatened a 50% tax on all imports from the European Union, as well as a 25% tariff on smartphones unless those products are made in the USA. Stocks sold off after the president's postings on social media related to the tariffs, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent then hit the media today trying to provide some clarity on the president's postings. He appeared on Fox News America's Newsroom. He said the EU has a collective action problem, in his words, because its 27 member states are being represented by this one group in Brussels, such that the underlying countries don't even know what the EU is negotiating on their behalf. President Trump did also come down in favor of a partnership between U.S. Steel and Japan's Nippon Steel today. And we saw U.S. Steel stock pop more than $9 today at 52 and change. Auto stocks also in focus this week with the EV mandate officially gone after U.S. Senate vote this week overturning California's gas car ban. I'll discuss the latest on that with our go-to car expert Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast. She'll be joining us live later this hour. Shares in companies tied to nuclear power moved higher today, helped by the president's rollout of 4 executive orders that seek to provide a boost to nuclear power here in the U.S. Boeing's had a good week. It's been up in recent weeks, as a matter of fact, but that seems to be more about what they're afraid of than their excitement over the company's improving fundamentals, according to some write-ups this week. Boeing stock has rallied about 10% this month, and it looks like it was under pressure today, down $1.05 at 202 and change. United Health Group also has been under pressure and had another some more tough news, along with those of other Medicare Advantage plan providers, after the Trump administration's call to aggressively expand audits to uncover wrongful Medicare claims. Tough news this week. In Washington, 2 Israeli embassy staffers were killed amid a rise in anti-Semitism. The FBI says the murder of a Jewish couple in Washington this week was an act of targeted anti-Semitic violence. Watching all of this very closely here in Southern California is Rabbi Abraham Cooper, who is with the Simon Wiesenthal Center here in Southern California, Associate Dean and Director of Global Social Action for the Simon Wiesenthal Center and the Museum of Tolerance in West Los Angeles. He'll be joining me live later this hour also to discuss the latest on anti-Semitism on U.S. campuses. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, Bitcoin, and the whole works this week. Joining us live now is Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks, John Najarian, co-founder of Market Rebellion and author of the book It's Not an Option with his brother Pete Najarian at itsnotanoption.com. John Najarian, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Great to be on with you, Frank. Thank you.
Wonderful to have you with us ahead of the 3-day holiday weekend. And let's get to the exciting stuff right away, and that is Bitcoin hitting record highs this week. You have the laser eyes on, so let's get your reaction to that big news here.
Well, I was lucky enough to be with Tim Draper, one of the largest individual holders of Bitcoin, at this Wall Street conference in West Palm Beach on the day that Bitcoin did that. And Mr. Draper, of course, third generation venture capitalist, I would say a friend of mine, was delighted. It was a huge Cheshire cat grin that he had when he heard that Bitcoin indeed had traded over 111,000, virtually touching 112,000. 111,999, I believe, was the high that day. And he owns some 30,000 of those Bitcoins. He bought them from the Silk Road when the U.S. government shut the Silk Road down with Ross Ulbricht going to prison and all that sort of thing. Mr. Draper was the winning high bid on the auction. I think he paid $18.5 million for it. And Frank, that $18.5 million became worth $3.3 billion this week. So I don't know if any of us had a better week than Mr. Draper.
Well, we offer congratulations from his other best friends here on the West Coast as well, his newest best friends. That is very big news. So congratulations on that. And you were an early adopter of crypto and Bitcoin. We did specials here on this station early on, you explaining Bitcoin and crypto to this great audience here. And did you ever think you'd see Bitcoin kiss 112,000? And where do you think it goes from here?
I did, and I think that's just part of the journey. I think Bitcoin still does go significantly higher. Does it go twice as high this year? I think it's going to have some rough waters in July. I think a lot of us in the crypto space think that it tends to back and fill, as they say on charts, meaning it goes up and then pulls back and then goes up. I think that's what we're likely to see here. But I do think it goes higher, significantly so, over the next 3 to 5 years. Could I see a $500,000 Bitcoin? I certainly could, or higher. And I think the fact that there's so much in the news these days about crypto. I mean, Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, a couple of the biggest banks in the United States, which means some of the biggest banks in the world, getting together perhaps to create a stable coin. Now, that's not a competitor to Bitcoin, but a stable coin that could be a competitor to Circle, for instance, or any of the other stable coins that are out there. If JP Morgan and some of their brethren decided to back one of those stable coins, it could be a pretty big deal. But again, that's not the same thing at all as Bitcoin. A stable coin is just supposed to hold that value against the dollar in a digital form versus Bitcoin, which is completely separate and decentralized.
Interesting that Bitcoin hit a record high on what I believe was the 15th anniversary of the day some people spent 10,000 Bitcoin worth $30 on 2 pizzas. That 10,000 Bitcoin is now worth $1.1 billion, I believe. Should they go back to Papa John's and try to get a refund there?
Yeah, they should. But that's not the way it worked, because Papa John's, or wherever the pizza was from, it might be Papa John's, they didn't pay Papa John's that. The particular person who paid the 10,000 Bitcoins just said, hey, if somebody will bring me a couple pizzas, I'll pay you X amount of Bitcoins. Turned out to be 10,000. But Bitcoins were basically below a penny at the time, and he was just trying to see if somebody would respond. And I think the person that bought the pizza with those with dollars, with fiat, if he held on to those Bitcoins, he or she is a very happy camper today.
Right. It was worth $30 at the time, from what I understand, and a lot of interesting postings about that memorable moment in the history of crypto. What else in the crypto space is getting your attention these days? Obviously, we're watching Ethereum have a pretty good month, right? Back to around 2,500. It was in the teens here not too long ago. Doge back to 22 cents, and Solana, which is being mentioned more often nowadays, at 175.
Yeah, Solana, of course, was hit pretty hard by FTX and that fiasco because Bankman-Fried and some of the other folks there had held a lot of Solana. And so as that was being liquidated, it drove the price down significantly. But I do think that's one of the best coins to own. I only own 3 right now: Solana, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. And most people are trying to talk me out of Ethereum, but like you said, Frank, it's been a nice rebound from a pretty harsh sell-off. Maybe I will lighten up a little bit on that, but if I do, I'll buy more Solana with the funds.
All right, and then the Trump meme coin, they had a big dinner last night, right? Were you there, by the way? And what about the Trump coin?
No, I wasn't. I was in West Palm Beach at that big conference there that Jason Lyons puts on every year. It's called Davos in Paradise. And he always does it somewhere in South Florida. It's been at Mar-a-Lago a couple times. This time it was at the Palm Beach Convention Center. There were so many people. But that, unfortunately, I also didn't own enough of those Trump coins to make a difference. And I think that was just for the whales, as they say, that that event last night in D.C.
Wow, and you were at the Davos of Beverly Hills here recently at the Milken Institute Global Conference as well, and the other conference here that focused on crypto here in Beverly Hills. So you're definitely making the rounds. And, of course, I love how people react when they see you at these conferences with tremendous enthusiasm. And what's the biggest question you're getting these days when you're out and about?
How long before Trump stops tariffing the entire world? That's the biggest question. But I think the answer to that is as soon as it's fairer trade. Again, I was just on TV a couple hours ago talking about this, but when you look at Europe and you say, well, why is Trump going after Europe so hard? Why does he want 25% tariffs across the board in Europe? Number one, he wants to bring them to the negotiating table because they've said they're going to negotiate, and he doesn't want this to be drawn out for 6 months. He wants to finish it basically in 6 days. And so he's going to tariff them and say, hey, these kick in June 1st. You guys want to see your economies start to teeter? Well, then try me. One of the big things that goes on over there, and I know Frank Mottek knows this, folks, but when you import a car like a BMW, Mercedes, a Fiat, it doesn't matter how expensive the car is. When it comes into the United States, we only tariff it at 2.5%. They tariff our U.S.-made Ford, General Motors, Stellantis, whatever it might be, Tesla, if we're importing from here to there rather than a European Tesla made in Germany. If we're importing cars to Europe, Europe slaps a 10% tariff on them. That's not fair. 2.5% versus 10, that's not equal. So foreign currencies can be played with. In many cases, people try to weaken their currency rather than see it strengthen because it's harder to export when your currencies are strong. A lot better for you when you're buying, when your currency is strong, but not when you're trying to export. And I think the president is just trying to make it fair with, if they're going to tariff us at 10%, we're going to tariff them at 25%, and then see when they finally blink and decide they're going to come to the negotiating table.
On there live with Dr. J. John Najarian. The latest headlines coming across the financial wire: ship crossings to the U.S. are being canceled. President Trump's new 50% EU tariff threat is not likely to help. Some of the folks on this program have recommended the shipping stocks, actually. What are your thoughts about that, and where would you be placing your bets as this tariff battle continues?
Well, this week, of course, we saw what was in at least the House side of that big, beautiful bill. And what is in it or not in it is a lot of credits for Chinese-made solar. Now, if you manufacture in the United States, like First Solar does, FSLR, you're not going to be hit with the same issues that these other solar companies like Solar Edge, SEDG, or, for instance, Sunrun, RUN. Sunrun and Solar Edge rely on basically leasing solar panels to people's roofs of their homes and so forth. And if indeed, and they do indeed, import those panels from China, well, then Trump's going to say those don't qualify for the rebate, the credit. So that makes them not very competitive with a company like First Solar that manufactures here. I think you're going to see a lot more of that until we see more fair trade. And I'd point out also that this week, yes, we did see negative performance out of the market, but not nearly the same as the positive performance the week before. 1 week, neither of these 2 weeks, the up week last week or the down week this week, make a trend, but it certainly was pretty clear that the president wants to get moving with these tariffs. And in order to get them pulled back, they're going to have to come to the negotiating table. And if they don't before June 1st, which is just a little over a week away, we're going to see a lot more cost hitting those European manufacturers when they're trying to sell into our country.
And it was just a week ago today that Moody's downgraded Uncle Sam's credit rating by 1 notch from the highest rating, as the other rating agencies have already done some time ago. The yield in the 10-year note, 4.52%. I know you're watching that number very closely. And gold also, by the way, got a big pop today, up about $63 at $3,357 and change. Anything else that's gotten your attention this week?
Well, I think the Palo Alto Networks shortfall was something. There are a number of tech stocks that are doing extraordinarily well. Even some retailers like Williams-Sonoma, which had great numbers this week, but then that's countered by something like Ross Stores, ROST, that was not doing so well. So it really depends on your mix of product, where it comes from, and I think that's probably what we're going to be seeing throughout the summer, and hopefully we get some resolution to some of these fair trade. I won't call it equal trade, but just fairer trade that should be going on between our countries. All of these developed countries should be having much more fair trade, but Europe has had a winning hand for a long time because of those, again, marked up tariffs on our goods versus theirs.
All right. Apple, of course, in focus today with the president's latest comments wanting iPhones to be made here in the United States. Apple stock down more than $6 on that news, back to $195. What about Apple here?
Well, I think you'd want to buy Apple on significant dips, especially if it gets anywhere near that 175, 177 level again that we were at just a few weeks ago. When somebody like Dan Ives says if we had to make iPhones in the U.S., they'd be $3,500. We don't have to make iPhones in the United States. We should be able to make them since so much of it is robotic these days. But I think people get the wrong impression when they hear, for instance, that, well, what if there was a 25% tariff, as the president said, on imported iPhones? Well, that's on the price at the dock. It is not at the price at the store, meaning that since Apple has about a 55% profit margin on those iPhones, then we're assuming, of course, that the first $500 of a $1,000 iPhone is going to the manufacturers over in China primarily. Okay, so if that gets marked by 25%, what's 25% of $500? Well, 10% of $500 is $50. So I think your audience can figure the rest of it. It's not exactly $500 or $1,000 more for that iPhone. We're We're talking about something that moves the price of the iPhone up by about $150, and that's if we don't get any other concessions by China or anybody else about the fair trade issues that the president has brought up. I think we will get more fair trade done, and I look forward to that, and I think that will make America more competitive.
All right, I just retweeted or re-X'd your posting on it's not an option given the volatile environment we're in at the moment. What do we need to know about options in this environment? What's your guidance here?
Well, with options give you the ability to, of course, take less risk because it's a smaller amount of money because it's not a perpetual. A stock is a perpetual, meaning if I buy Apple at $195, chances are Apple's still going to be here in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. On the option side, I can define ownership of Apple for instance, a week or for a month or for 2 months. Those are options or derivatives. And I think an environment like this was tailor-made for options, and people really should be looking at options instead of just stock. As the book says, it's not an option to just trade stock anymore.
Terrific, John. Thank you very much for joining us live here. I'll let you get on with your holiday weekend. I detected a tropical breeze a couple of times there, so I was wondering, are you on a boat or at the Breakers Hotel right there on the ocean there in Palm Beach?
No, I'm back in Puerto Rico, but you did detect a nice ocean breeze. The trade winds here in Puerto Rico are fabulous. So I wish the same to you, Frank, a fabulous weekend to you and all of your listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, John Najarian, for joining us live here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks, co-founder of Market Rebellion, and his book, It's Not an Option, at itsnotanoption.com. Live with us here, Mottek On Money, 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Rough week for stocks, but a record-shattering week for the cryptos, especially Bitcoin, which popped close to $112,000 per Bitcoin this week. 111,986 is the number that I have here for the record high for Bitcoin this week. Right now, Bitcoin has pulled back a bit now, down nearly 1,000 at 107,830. Ethereum hovering at around 2,541 after its big run-up recently. Doge at the moment at 22 cents and Solana at 175. The Dow came in for a closing loss today of 256 points. The S&P 500 down 39. The NASDAQ down 189. Looks like the major averages were down more than 2% for the week. The yield in the 10-year note has wrapped up the week at 4.52%. Our U.S. markets will be closed on Monday in observance of Memorial Day. And now the latest news here on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues 790 KBC. More heartbreak and outrage this week after 2 Israeli embassy staffers were killed amid a rise in anti-Semitism. They worked for the Israeli embassy in Washington, and this weekend they were slated to go to Jerusalem. The FBI says the murder of that Jewish couple in Washington this week was an act of targeted anti-Semitic violence. This is anti-Semitism on American university campuses got new attention this week. Meanwhile, the Israel-Hamas war continues, which started after the Hamas terror attack on Israel on October 7, 2023. The Israeli Prime Minister launching an attack on the UK Prime Minister and leaders of France and Canada today, saying they had effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. Meanwhile, the Simon Wiesenthal Center here in Southern California has released its 2025 Digital Terror and Hate Report Card at a news conference in New York City and simultaneously presented to the California State Legislature recently. Joining us live now is Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean and Director of Global Social Action for the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Museum of Tolerance in West Los Angeles. Rabbi Cooper, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Frank, it's always good to be with you. It's always difficult to talk about the latest developments, many of which are just heartbreaking.
Certainly. And what's your reaction to this horrific story this week in Washington? Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram killed this week in Washington, D.C., outside the museum there.
Right. I actually was in Washington on Wednesday and Thursday, and I did meet this young lady previously when I was with the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. This is a straight act of terrorism. The questions that remain are glaring. someone from Chicago gets on a plane, checks his gun to send it through on a flight to Washington, shows up outside an event that was never really publicly promoted, the address of which was never released to anyone who didn't have a ticket. So it's clear. And, of course, he went ahead and assassinated two young people, even with the young lady trying to crawl away to survive. He pumped multiple bullets into her body. And someone who is not, as far as we know, really on the radar screen insofar as the Middle East conflict. So you have a crossover now in which two American citizens, one who is a terrorist, shooting people because they're Jewish and associated with the Israeli embassy, about a conflict that's taking place thousands of miles away. There are so many acts of violence and terrorism and hate crimes that we have a tendency to just say, well, it's really horrible, and they were going to get engaged next week in Jerusalem. And the human part, of course, tears at your heart. But there's also the hard, cold facts that we've erased another red line here in the United States when it comes to terrorism. And we need the full attention, Homeland Security, FBI, Department of Justice, et cetera, to get to the bottom as to who sent him, how is that target, obscure target, selected. And yesterday morning, I went with my friend, Pastor Johnny Moore, early in Washington, and we said our prayers for the two murdered innocent victims. And to the left was this Jewish museum, and over our right shoulder was FBI headquarters. So I think there's a lot more to this horrific story, and we need to be able to connect the dots, not only to protect the American Jewish community, but to protect all Americans, because if we're talking about nefarious players from outside the United States unleashing this kind of activity, we need a lot more attention to what's going on social media. We need the social media companies to stop serving as platforms for these not just racists and anti-Semites and bigots, but individuals who support terrorism. So I congratulate and thank you for focusing again on this kind of an incident. But I think the questions that remain in the wake of this horrific massacre should be weighing on all Americans.
Very heartbreaking, and we send our condolences to the families of those killed, and to you, Rabbi, having met the one who was killed there, and just absolutely heartbreaking. And President Trump certainly has put his foot down on anti-Semitism, but focusing on the universities as well, saying Harvard, for example, has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism. Other universities have been in focus this week as well. What about what's happening on that front this week?
I think to sort of just bring it down to basics for those of us who aren't lawyers, when a parent or a student forks over tens of thousands of dollars a year in order to secure a good education, that's a contract. And the school has responsibilities to make sure that students can get to class, that there's an environment that facilitates their learning process. And at Harvard and in other places, including, as we know here at UCLA, MIT, Jewish students told to go up the back way to sneak into their class and to have takeovers of entire sections of the campus and not allowing students to get to the library to study for their finals or to even go to class. If nothing else, that's not only a breach of trust, but it's also a breach of a contract. So I applaud the administration's direct message to the elite universities that you're not going to be getting these billions of dollars if you're enabling and, in a sense, supporting the utilization of your campuses for anti-American, anti-Semitic, violent activities, violent language, the kind of language that, in part, obviously inspired this person in Chicago, Illinois, to get on a plane and to gun down two young people because they're associated with the state of Israel, with the Jewish community. We have all our confidence in the chief of the LAPD. They're doing a great job. Jewish institutions have the cameras, can secure their physical, locations. But when you talk about this kind of turn to direct, violent terrorism, this is beyond the realm of control or success for any local PD. It really needs a much deeper attention by the feds. And I commend the administration. It may, be very discomforting to talk about the elites this way, but they have failed their fundamental responsibilities from coast to coast when it comes to enabling students of all religions, in the case of Harvard, Asians and Jews, etc., that they better get with the program, or they're going to find that their good name, which they may have earned decades ago, is going to be eroded.
Hey there, I'm Paula Pant, host of the Afford Anything podcast. I help people make the smartest money decisions possible.
You should not do the 401k loan.
Reason number 4,872. Are we heading for a recession?
You'd be shocked.
Dumping it into the house?
Invest in flipping houses.
Mathematically the better option.
Paula Pant's really keeping us in business.
Because face it, money's too important to wing it. Review your budget.
Take the reins.
Sharpen your skills.
Do the things.
Start a side hustle
that will affect your life.
Right. Afford Anything. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
I wouldn't send my kid to Harvard now if he or she got in. No way. It's not a welcoming environment for serious study, and it could be a dangerous place for Jewish kids.
Rabbi, let's take a moment to recognize this weekend is Memorial Day and all of the American servicemen who died fighting in World War II especially. I want to recognize and remember Simon Wiesenthal of blessed memory. He was liberated from a concentration camp 80 years ago this month. And, of course, his name is on the Simon Wiesenthal Center. So could you take a moment, please, to tell us in memory Simon Wiesenthal?
Let me just say two things. First of all, God bless the memory of all the veterans, American veterans who fought and died in the name of freedom in our great country and continue to serve. Two weeks ago, I had the honor of being part of the U.S. delegation at the Mauthausen concentration camp in Austria, where American soldiers liberated Mr. Wiesenthal. He was too weak to stand and would have been dead a few days later from starvation. And there were 20,000 people at Mauthausen from 40 countries remembering their loved ones. There were victims from dozens of countries, and, of course, Soviet prisoners. The Jews were being worked and starved to death. And on that occasion, the Wiesenthal Center Museum of Tolerance walked with the honor guard with a replica of a 56-star U.S. flag that's in the Museum of Tolerance, the original, that was sewn secretly in the weeks before the liberation and provided and presented to the liberating American soldiers. That flag, since nobody knew how many states there were, had 56 stars. It flew over the liberated camp for a month, and we made a replica of that. We used that flag, that symbol of America's potential and greatness and symbolism, to march before 20,000 people from all over the world. We were the last ones to march because the liberators, the United States military, they were the ones that came up, if you will, in the rear, so that all the other survivors and children of victims could, at least for one day, say thank you to the United States of America and to America's greatest generation.
Rabbi, thank you. Thank you for sharing that very powerful story with us. God bless you, and God bless the memory of Simon Wiesenthal. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon. That is Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean and Director of Global Social Action at the Simon Wiesenthal Center Museum of Tolerance in West Los Angeles. You're on 790 KABC. Frank Mottek here for United Gold Group. Did you know that for more than 10,000 years, gold has been the greatest store of value and considered a safe haven asset to preserve your wealth? Well, now with the U.S. debt at more than $36 trillion and climbing, a possible recession on the horizon, and the development of the digital dollar, central bank digital currency, it's more critical now than ever before to safeguard your assets, like your cash savings and retirement accounts, with physical gold. Opening a gold IRA is one of the best ways to secure your wealth and create a stable financial future. Tune in tomorrow, Saturday at 8 a.m. to hear me interview Dave. He's the boss at United Gold Group, and you'll learn a lot about how to invest in gold. Or give my friends at United Gold Group a call right now. The number is 1-800-753-8534. Again, that's 800-753-8534. Mention Mottek, and you can get $1,000 worth of silver with a qualifying purchase. Call now, 800-753-8534, or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. The car names were back in focus with all this new tariff talk today. We see Tesla pulling into reverse, down nearly $2 at $3.39 and change. GM pulling back about 50 cents to $48.69. Ford at $10.36, down about 8 cents today. Looks like the EV mandate is pulled into reverse as well, officially gone, as a matter of fact, after a U.S. Senate vote this week overturning California's gas car ban, which was coming up. Let's bring in our go-to car expert now, Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast. Lauren, thanks very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Yes, there's a lot going on, and this is very exciting. The Senate voted during the night to end the California car gas ban, and the bill is now heading to President Trump's desk. We know for a fact that he will sign it. It was one of his campaign statements, and this is really good news because it takes away the electric vehicle mandate, but we still need to remove that $7,500 tax credit. That is in the big, beautiful bill that is currently in the Senate, and they're hoping that stays in because as soon as that gets to President Trump's desk, he'll sign that. That would remove the $7,500 tax credit. It would also then lock in the fact that we will not be getting this electric vehicle mandate back. Now, what's really important, a lot of people say, well, the next administration will just come in and reapply it. No, this was done through a Congressional Review Act, and because it was done in such a way and it was voted on by the Senate, it cannot be undone. It could be reissued in a completely different manner, but it can't be the same rules and the same meaning. So it'll never be the same, and that's actually really good. Immediately, once, of course, this came out, Governor Gavin Newsom had to say that we're going to sue. He got 11 other states on board. But just before we got on the phone, I got a note from someone from the local Auto Dealers Association. I'm waiting for it to post. But Kathy Hochul has said from New York State that she will abide by the Senate, and they're going to put a halt to electric vehicles for 2 years, which hopefully she'll be out of office, because there's no funding. That $7,500 tax credit that goes to those 11 states is federal tax dollars. Those are going away, which means the states would have to fund that, and they can't afford to fund it. And so that includes the additional $2,000 that New York State and the other 11 states, including California, were going to offer. California is out of money in their fund, so if you purchase an electric car, you could only get the federal. Now, they will taper this off till the end of the year. It's important to note that if you want an electric car, it fits your lifestyle, you'll still be able to buy one, but note that that tax credit will go away, as well as the credit you get when you install a level 2 charger in your home.
Well, it sounds like some politicians are listening to consumers, and certainly the car companies are. I see Honda this week bucked the EV trend and rolled back their EV plans in favor of hybrids. Are you seeing other change of plans for some of the other major automakers in the face of all this?
Oh, yes. They have turned tail big time, starting with General Motors. Mary Barra said something. She's General Motors president. President of Ford, Jim Farley, has also made a statement that they're going to reassess all their electric vehicles and pull back on production immediately. Stellantis said the same thing. Toyota was one of the few smart brands that didn't jump on board. They have the BZ. They're not used to call it the BZ4X. It's a BZ. They have a new one coming out. They're doing that to fulfill interest from consumers. They don't expect to make a lot of them. The one company that seems to be paying the most attention is Hyundai Corporation, which is Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis. That's under the same umbrella, though they're completely separate companies here in North America.
Lauren, great job as always. Thank you very much for that important update. Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and the co-host of the Total Car Score podcast, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Stocks slipping about 2% for the week. Bitcoin hit an all-time high near 112,000 this past week. Right now hovering just below 108,000. I'll be back with more at 4 Tuesday. Have a great 3-day holiday weekend. Markets will be closed on Monday, Memorial Day. This is Mottek On Money on 790 KABC.
No Contest Wrestling. O'Shea Jackson Jr. and TJ Jefferson with the biggest names in the game.
Ricky Saints is in the house, everybody. NXT North American Champion, baby.
How you feeling right now, man?
I feel great.
Jay Uso. What's going on, man?
A lot of heavy days, but it's okay, man. It's part of the game.
They know who they are, bro. And you know who I am.
TJ, can you tell them where to find us?
Yeah.
I mean, why else are we here? You can always find us No Contest Wrestling. Check us out.
The No Contest Wrestling Podcast, part of the Rich Eisen Podcast Network. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.